The Hanged Man is a mysterious and multifaceted card. In the Book of Thoth, Crowley describes it as the descent of light into darkness in order to redeem it. And yet Crowley also implies that being redeemed is in itself a bad thing because it implies debt. And so we have straight away a confusion and giving way to a misunderstanding of the actual card. We've seen the Hanged Man over on the Rider-Waite and various other tarot decks which show a similar image, and they all have on them a gallows. And yet Crowley has removed the gallows, replacing them with other symbols which we will come to later. The gallows, of course, suggesting a punishment and a sacrifice and an execution, which is something that the Thoth Hanged Man does not want to actually symbolise in its art. On the Tree of Life, the Hanged Man connects Geberah with Hod, Geberah being connected with Mars, and therefore in terms of this symbology being the fire of man's intellect, the fire of our life, which of course does not burn forever because we are mortal beings and we need to constantly stoke our fire with food and shelter and drink and so on in order to keep it burning. And Hod, which is our actual intellect, our reasoning mind, and with regards to the Hanged Man, he's reasoning that he's a victim. Oh, I'm being sacrificed, I'm being punished, and I didn't deserve this type of thing. And this is why you can see that his bent leg is actually facing the compass direction of west, suggesting that he has stumbled unconsciously into circumstances outside of what he wished to actually manifest, and thinks, I'm a victim of these circumstances which are happening around me, and therefore abandons the spiritual path and is in need therefore to be redeemed from it. At the bottom of the card, the Hebrew character is the character of Mem, meaning the sea, the ocean, and this is quite often actually quite misunderstood and is rather mysterious because you wouldn't naturally associate this card, especially in some of its other forms, to be connected with water. And yet it is, and if we go back to the Tree of Life, water being Binar, which is the third Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, representing what is a potential experience, what could happen in this void of femifestation before manifestation, what is our potential, what could we be? And it's also similar therefore to Greek elementals, where for example the earth would represent our physical brain and physical consciousness, where water, Mem, the ocean, would be a type of meditation, a type of going inside oneself to concentrate and direct the consciousness upon the actual will. And so you can see clearly that the Hanged Man is about a type of punishment, a type of restriction. Of course, if you are hung in this way, you wouldn't be dead, certainly not straight away, but you wouldn't be able to move. It's showing that he's nailed, he has nails in his hands and his feet, and of course this has religious connotations to it as well, which we'll come to later. But this is not about him being punished for a crime that he's necessarily committed, rather it's about a type of self-sacrifice. But where the Thoth card becomes confusing is that Aleister Crowley did not preach a self-sacrifice and things such as that. If you read Crowley's work, the badness and evil and things in the world and morality in general is illusion. All is illusion and all is subjective. And so what is wrong in one situation may not be wrong in another situation, depending on the actual state and place and time that we're involved in. And so rather this is about man being trapped and hung here, being trapped by a fear of his limitations, a fear that's holding him back, saying, I don't think I can do this, I don't know how I can move on. And so, for example, you can see at the top, instead of the gallows, we have the Ankh, the very powerful Egyptian symbol of life, and yet it's upside down on here, so it's inverting that symbol of life. But the Ankh is also connected with the Tau, the word Tau itself meaning cross, and therefore you can trace that straight to the cross, and Christ, of course, the T shape of the Tau is also similar to the gallows shown in the other decks, and so it really comes full circle if you want to interpret it like that. And this particular Ankh on the Thoth Hanged Man has a serpent linked around it, and it's actually the serpent that is connecting the man to the Ankh. The serpent is coiled twice around the Ankh, which brings us back to the Tree of Life and the second Sephiroth of Shokmar, which represents the intellect and wisdom of God rather than of man. And so it's saying that God is binding man to life itself. So we are always bound by the wisdom and will of God to our own source of life. And yet it's also coiled twice, meaning duality yet again, and so that we have that choice and that will. So it could be life and death associated within the same symbol. Emanating from the top of the Ankh and right at the very top of the card is the light of Kether. So that white light being, of course, the spiritual light, implying that this will of God is not a judgmental God, but is comprised out of that infinite love that we've spoken about before. And so it is an unconditional love for all creation and all forms of manifestation, which implies that within Thelema, of course, every experience and every act of will has underscoring it an act of love. And so an act of true will, by its very nature, has to be an act of love. It has to be a loving act which connects to the very top of the card. And below Kether, below the white light, is a green substance which is meant to be like a green air, and this is Venus. Green in these things is often Venus, which yet again suggests love, but it's love coming down from Kether, moving towards the physical plane. The actual shape of the Hanged Man is something which is quite striking on this card. It can be shown in many different ways, and one way of looking at it is that it's essentially an upside down triangle with a cross on the top, such as the symbol that one can see here, which is a known symbol of light entering darkness. The cross represents the physical world, the world of mass and matter, and the triangle is representing the Trinity, if you like, the Holy Trinity, the spiritual dimensions. And so what we have here is light coming down into the darkness, and so something that was hopeless and dark and terrible is lit. And you've heard these type of suggestions of just a tiny candle lit in the dark room fills the corners with light, and it's basically that type of thing, but in an esoteric way. The man himself connects the Kether at the top of the card all the way down to the bottom of the card, where it connects to the lower Sephiroth of Malkuth. So his head is, if we look at it in terms of this shape, would be in the centre of this triangle that we would see here. The triangle formed by his arms coming down, and in fact the way that they've actually done the muscles really draws home the fact that this is a pyramid or triangle style shape. It's similar to what we've seen before, of course, with the all-seeing eye and the Masonic symbols, which you can see on various things all around the world, and this symbolises enlightenment. It symbolises that enlightenment and awakening experience that we've spoken about so many times. And so man, by following all of the experiences of the physical world, brings that spiritual Kether, that infinite love of God, down to Malkuth, to the physical world. He's a conduit for bringing that infinite love down into the world of experience. The nails, which are actually restricting him here, are shaped like another Hebrew character, and this is the very powerful symbol of vow. And this, as we've seen before, joins heaven and earth. It implies a connection between spirituality and earthly matters, and is also used in the Tetragrammaton, of course. The disc behind the hands, which is drawn through, of course, with the letter Vow being the nail, is Venus again, and is love. And so love is really underpinning everything, and so Crowley's gone away from the punishment and the dark side of this, and showing love is the law, love under will, and that's really what that is showing, which is part of the very law of Thelema. And of course that manifesting of will brings it into the physical world, and so if we look at what is meant to represent Malkuth, or the lower vibrations, the physical world at the bottom, we can see this black area, which is the black waters representing the womb. And so this womb is what gives birth to form in the physical world, and within this womb is a serpent, a coiled serpent, and inside the serpent it has threads of gold running through it. And so the serpent is the crawling thing, the creeping thing, so one of the lower forms of creation. And indeed the serpent is actually coiled 4 times here, 4 being associated very much with that manifestation, that world of structure and of form, And you can trace this back to the shape of the actual Hanged Man himself, and if you want to go even further, you can bring it back to the Emperor card with the number 4, yet again the Emperor being that Lord of Will of the physical world and so on, and you can watch the full video on that if you want to find out more. And so what this is really suggesting is that because the serpent is a so-called lower form of life, it's a new manifestation, a new form of life which has been manifested, and so this has been born when we let go of what was holding us back. It has to flow freely through Kether and all the way down to Malkuth, and if anything holds it back, that has to be worked through first before this is born. And so it's suggesting that the entire universe of creation and all the manifested realities are able to redeem themselves and bring themselves back to what connects them to that infinite connection. And so you can see, for example, 18 rays of light which appear to be emanating from the top of the man's head into the womb of creation. 18 being the number of Chai, Chai meaning life, the Ankh at the top again meaning life. And so this is connecting what we saw with the triangle and the cross earlier in the card about bringing light into darkness. And so what was, hopeless and dark and terrifying is now filled with light and looks very, very different, of course, once there is, if you like, a light shined upon it. And this is an important symbol which runs through this particular card. In the actual background of the card, one can see a grid made out of various squares, which almost looks like mathematical paper, that type of thing. And the legs are actually crossed inside a darker square of grids, and within the centre of the rest of the grid. And this brings us to the Enochian system of magic, which is something which you will come across in Aleister Crowley's other works. And the cross, which would be in the centre of these grids and his man's legs on the card, is the combining of 4 elements that make up the physical world, which is Malkuth again if we're doing it on the Tree of Life. And so what we have here is that he is attached to the physical world. Our bodies by their very nature are going to exist in this vibration of the physical world, and so although above us we've got that light and we can draw that light through us and manifest into that womb of creation, our physical bodies are going to be trapped into this vibration, although underpinning them, as you can see with the green discs, is of course the love which connects us back to the infinite. And so really this card, although it has many other meanings, it's a very multifaceted card, and in the Thoth deck especially, this is saying that this sacrifice that people feel they owe to God, or this guilt that people feel, this need to confess to God and deal with sins and so on, is part of the illusion of the physical world. The fact is, we are made by that spiritual light that you can see at the top of the card. We have our own divinity, our own Kether spiritual love light within us, and we have our true will in Thelema, which is comprised out of that very love, and it's our duty, if you like, to make experiences and therefore to manifest and fulfill that will. And so it's saying, like, every man and every woman is a star. We can only be ourselves. We're not responsible to other people if we make bad decisions and end up hung in this way. We have to get ourselves down. We have to redeem ourselves and move on. We're not waiting for somebody else to come and cut us down, and we're certainly not prostrating ourselves on the ground in front of an idol and saying, please forgive me. And so if you get this card in your reading, especially in its upright position, it's offering you that opportunity. Redeem your situation. If you're in a bad situation, now is your opportunity. Start putting things right. And how do you put things right? You begin to bring light into the darkness, which is the symbol that we've seen all the way through it. When you begin to bring just even a very small amount of light into the darkness, then you've set back upon the path. And when you bring that light down into the womb of creation, then manifestation will start showing itself, sometimes in a small way, in a low way, but it will start, and you've begun your path again to redeem yourself and move on.